Okay, let's begin. It's so wonderful to see everybody joining. I don't even have the ability to read everybody's names and self-introductions, so I'll have to do that later. But thank you, everybody, and welcome. We're thrilled you chose to join us today for this special event. We're so excited to know that many of you are interested in co-designing with kids and the broader effort to include children's voices in the creation of digital products that are made for them. You might be a researcher, an educator, a product designer, somebody who works in the policy space, or perhaps you work in kids media in some other capacity, or some combination of these roles. If you're not already familiar with who we are, the Joan Ganz Cooney Center is a research and innovation lab at Sesame Workshop. Joan's original question, can television help children learn, made formative research one of the pillars upon which Sesame Street was founded. It also meant that kids have been included in the creation process here from the very beginning. The Cooney Center basically continues to ask this question in the context of the emerging media of today, in a world where technology is constantly evolving and expanding its presence in our lives. That means the need to support children's participation in this work is greater than ever. If our goal is to foster a safer, more engaging, more enriching digital environment for kids, we need to support a supportive ecosystem that encourages creators to design with children's best interests in mind. We also need to provide on-ramps to this ecosystem and to maintain an active community for all of us who share this common goal. To that end, we just launched a Wellbeing by Design Fellowship that I'll say more about at the end. Today, we'll share stories from the Cooney Center Sandbox, a new service we're offering to early-stage startups, product teams at big companies, and everybody in between. We're going to talk about co-design methodologies with two of our implementation partners, and then we'll introduce a few of our project partners who will share their experiences with you. All of this started for us with a question. How might we encourage research-based approaches and include diverse kids in the design process, ultimately with the goal of ensuring that new products have a positive impact and serve kids everywhere? It's also important to cite your sources. I would be remiss if I didn't thank a few of the many people whose work inspired and informed what we are doing. That includes our Sesame colleagues in the digital education and research teams, Alison Druin at the Pratt Institute, her many former graduate students, and the KidsTeam network at universities across the country, Ozzy Jamalian at the Giant Room here in New York City, one of our guests today, all of the product teams we've worked with, a few of whom you will meet here in just a few minutes, and our supporters at the Walton Family Foundation who generously supported the first year of operation. Last thing, a little housekeeping. We'd love to hear from you. If you haven't already, please drop a note in the chat to introduce yourself. Let us know where you're from and what you're doing. And as you listen, if you have questions for the team, please just add them to the Q&A feature and we'll do our best to respond at the end of the session. Also, if you want to reach out to work with us or engage in our design community, please add your information to the form that we'll drop into the chat. It's now my pleasure to introduce my colleague Medha Tare, our Senior Director of Research. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. It's so great to see such a great turnout today. We're excited to chat with you. I am going to just give a little overview of what the Cooney Center Sandbox is, and then I'm so excited to have a conversation with some of our partners. So next slide, please. So why child-centered design? We know that people who are designing for kids have their best interests at heart. They value kid-centered research, and the products that are made by including kids' voices are, more fun, they're more engaging, they meet the needs of diverse kids and users. But we also know that there are different barriers to adopting these sorts of processes, time, money, access to diverse populations. And one of the reasons why we started this work, this initiative, is to explore how to leverage these participatory methods and achieve greater impact for all of the stakeholders involved, the kids who get to participate and who will ultimately use the products, the product partners who want to create things that are wonderful and usable and engaging, and of course the field as a whole, where we want to share, methods that work to bring these stories to life. So that's part of why we're sharing out today, to share some of those stories. Next slide, please. The Cooney Center Sandbox is one initiative that we have started to bring innovators and kids together, enabling innovators to design with and for kids. In our initiative, we help for-profit and nonprofit partners to build better digital media products, help designers and developers become kid literate through expertise in research and methods and development and media generally. Engage kids in product ideation, which is what we'll share more about today and what those processes actually look like. Next slide, please. So we are building on a large foundation of existing work and in participatory design and user research. So this is a method of focusing on engaging users in the design process. At its heart, it emphasizes a democratic and collaborative relationship between users and designers to create new technologies. Next slide, please. And as Michael mentioned, we are, of course, building on the wonderful work of Alison Druin and her colleagues on their framework of how the different roles that children can play in the technology design process, from a user after a product is already out on the market to a design partner from the beginning, where there is a sustained and deep relationship. And I won't go into all the details of this model right now, but I highly recommend checking out her seminal paper that's cited here and thinking about, what is the relationship between the child and the technology, and then the child and the adults who around them who are creating the technology in the end. So we have been doing some of this work with a variety of partners in order to explore how to conduct this work in different spaces, including in a moment, we'll be speaking with Dr. Azi Jamalian, the founder of the Giant Room in New York City, as well as Dr. Beth Bonsignor, who's the leader of the KidsTeam at UMD. And we also sometimes, are recruiting custom kind of populations on our own as well. So we recently wrapped up an engagement looking at reluctant readers who are ages 9 to 13 and what they really want out of an educational technology product. So we were looking for the kids who this is being designed for and bringing them into the process as well. So we're so excited to share more with you. And again, thank you to all the folks that we have been learning from, including Dr. Mona Lee Guha, Dr. Jason Yip, and others from the KidsTeam world. And I think we're ready to speak with Azi and Beth. Wonderful. Wonderful. So again, I'm happy to introduce Dr. Azi Jamalian, who is the founder and CEO of the Giant Room, a creative STEM organization that helps the next generation of creatives and inventors to think big and act on their most ambitious ideas. And Dr. Beth Bonsignor, who is assistant research professor in the University of Maryland's College of Information Studies and Human-Computer Interaction Lab. And you all can both add on to those short introductions, since we're running a tight show today, but we're so glad to have you here. And I wanted to just start by chatting with you both about how you do this work, because I think people are really interested in, examples of how we bring kids into the process and how do we adjust and customize the design process for kids of different ages, in different contexts potentially, and thinking specifically about the research questions that a product partner might have. So I'll start with Azi, if you want to share a little bit about how we have gone about this work together.
Sure, of course. Thank you so much for having me and for the warm introduction. And I'm very glad to see many actually familiar names as everyone is introducing themselves in the chat. So I'm Azi from the Giant Room, and we've been partnering with Sandbox initiative from day one, almost, I think. I would say, back to answer to your question, co-designing with kids, the key element for us is always to go through the process with open minds and quite frankly, no agenda other than designing with kids products that we're hoping to be engaging and good for kids. That means when we start designing these sessions, we really pay attention to creating space for kids' voices and also creating a non-hierarchical culture for both kids and adults to feel that their ideas are valid, they're worthy of exploration, and that they actually could contribute a lot to the product development. What it means in practice is that we literally sit down with everyone on the floor. When you come to the space, there are no like kids standing up and or adults standing up, kids sitting. Everyone is sitting on the floor. Everyone is engaging in activities in equal parts. If we're at the table, everyone is sitting at the table. And when kids sharing their ideas, we as adult designers treat them as true colleagues and collaborators. That means we don't laugh at their ideas, even if it's so big and imaginative and out of this world. We pause, we listen, look into their eyes, ask them questions if we don't understand, build on their ideas. And when we see them frustrated, not being able to actually articulate their ideas, we give them room to go about it. So it's a lot of awareness and consciousness as we treat kids, because a lot of these practices go against how we typically engage with kids in a like silly way and just like always laughing. But here, everyone is serious and everyone genuinely is interested to hear ideas and build on each other's ideas. And then beyond that, every research we've done depends on obviously kids' ages, their research questions, the product we're designing, and also the product development cycle. I give you some examples to see how different they could look, but at the end, the heart of all of them, the goal is all the same. We did one research project with 3 and 4-year-olds. You may think that how would you co-design a product with 3 and 4-year-olds? It is possible. We did it. With them, we sat down on the floor, engaged in a play pattern, both kids and all kids and adults, just like to feel comfortable being around each other and to be able to simply play and gaining that trust from kids that here is a space for them as much as it is for adults. And then engaged with kids as they play test with the product and taking lots of observational notes and not only looking into the things they say, but also the unspoken things. How do they gesture? How do their facial expressions change? How would they, when do they want to stop playing and when do they want to continue? So a lot of the clues that goes beyond just the things that kids say. And then after that, the co-design part was simply playing with them, engaging in different play patterns that kids invite us to do it, and taking notes of what they like to do, what they like to share, what type of play things they like to design, and then coming up with synthesis and design recommendations that then it could be applied into the product. This was very different than another study we did with ScratchJr team, which they were interested in looking into how kindergarten kids who don't have any coding background would engage with their ScratchJr app in school settings without much instructions. So we went to school, we set up the session all at these students' classrooms. And we, again, observed them as they played with the app. And then after they played with the app, we asked our participants to design coding blocks with paper and pencil. So something, again, completely related to that particular product, but then giving tools, low-tech tools for kids to prototyping their own ideas. And then as they design their own ideas and using their own coding blocks to code a human robot, we again looked into their thought processes, their design patterns, their ideas, and how might we actually translate those into design recommendations for the product. Yet this was very different with another product we did with older kids. It was 8 to 13-year-olds with Planet Agora team. And Planet Agora team wanted to start this process of co-designing with kids from very early on, before they even had a digital prototype of the app. And that was really key to being able to truly design a product from the ground up with kids and with their ideas integrated as part of the product. So we designed a paper prototype of the product and invited kids to use Post-its as if they're texting each other. And that's how they started to play test the product. And then as they play tested, they came up with new features for the app. They even made prototypes of those features, and they added those to their play testing session to see how might that changes their reaction to the product. So again, The way we are applying this co-design process with kids could vary from product to product, kids' ages, and research questions. But at the end of it, the key is to be open-minded, creating the space for both kids and adults to contribute ideas equally, and also making a non-hierarchical culture so that everyone is welcome to contribute.
Great, thank you. Yeah, lots of wonderful examples over the last few months where we've really tried to explore different methods. And Beth, you have been doing this for many years, and we have learned so much from you as well. Can you share a little bit more about how do you translate what happens in those sessions with kids into design recommendations? What does that process look like, from your perspective and from a KidsTeam model?
Yeah, so first I want to take a page from Ozzy's book, and also thank everybody for being here and for having such a great group of folks. That I'm looking at all the chat and seeing everybody who's here, and I'm really excited to meet everybody here and appreciative of the opportunity to share some of our work. And I also wanted to reinforce what Ozzy said about being open to children's ideas and sort of noticing and being attentive and just listening better, because often I think children are in power dynamic situations, in school and at home, where the adult does have, some authority over them, and it's co-design is your space to be able to have that level that playing field and have a sort of elaboration or elaborative relationship. And KidsTeam, because we work with the same group of kids over a longer period of time, really focuses on that sort of relationship building. And I did want to mention a little bit about cooperative inquiries evolution, if I could, before we talk about how we translate the ideas. So, I mean, if those of you have seen the Google graphic today, Google is 25 years ago, or 25 years old. Well, KidsTeam started, Alison Druin started an MIT Media Lab working with children, trying to solicit their design ideas about storytelling, the way that they wanted to experience storytelling, and new technologies for storytelling in the 80s, and established the cooperative inquiry framework and codified these approaches around 1998, so around the time that Google was founded. And not only that, you mentioned Jason Yip at University of Washington. We've expanded geographically to University of Washington, Boise State University, an ad hoc design team at University of Baltimore. And because these techniques have sort of become what I would say, these participatory, user-centered, asset-based approaches have become part of an established sort of workflow, which is evidenced by all the folks who are here, who are interested in it, and all the amazing panelists who practice co-design, including Ozzy. We've not necessarily looked at the techniques as much, and we sort of focused on how are the children experiencing and reflecting on their design process and their role as and identities as a technology designer, because technology is so ubiquitous. So some of the projects that we worked on have looked at things like privacy. How young can a child be before they consider their online presence, and how private, and how much information they're willing to share, while at the same time getting that sort of social capital that you get when you have those social connections. So the interesting part about the onion model that we call the roles that children play in the technology process that you showed, is that we've sort of added, in collaboration with international child-computer interaction designers, child as protagonist and researcher, right? So this sense that a child goes, I can reflect and have a critical stance on the technology that I use, so that I can say, yeah, I want control over my privacy. I want control over an AI, right? How I talk to an AI, and how I interact with, and how much information it gives back to me. So it's just really been nice to start with this empowerment of the child from the beginning, and then see them actually take a much more active role as technology becomes more ubiquitous. But more to your question about how we translate design ideas. So when, I mean, you heard Ozzy talk about it. Sometimes kids will come up with these outlandish ideas, like, teleportation, or a do not touch button that explodes a computer. So how do you take this sort of whimsical idea? And most of our partners will say, that's a little too whimsical. That's like, we can't do that technology. That's not possible. But we continue to attend to the number of times that the children repeat that sort of design feature, like the rocket ship or the teleportation or the explosions on the website, and you start to see different design metaphors. Like maybe teleportation is just about connection, about having this connection with your friends and ability to see your friends like we are seeing each other now, right? So you could say, what's the next best thing? Or you could also say, well, what really are they saying when they want a button that causes things to explode, or silly things to happen, or a website to get slimed? And you start to see, oh, what the design metaphor is actually randomness and surprise, which is a constant feature in many games, right? Is that there's an element of chance or surprise. And so if you are open, like Ozzy says, and if you do attend to these kinds of what the child is actually envisioning, instead of saying, well, that's ridiculous, we can't do that, I think you start to see much more clearly what the design requirement is and how you can collaborate with that child and elaborate on a workable solution that will match all of your visions.
It's wonderful. We have just 2 minutes left in this section, but I wanted to just ask you both for a quick piece of advice for how designers should approach this experience to be strong partners and make the most of the opportunity when they get to work with kids. You have?
Well, I think our choir has said, be flexible, be open, be attentive, find those places. I mean, we always start with a snack. And one of the reasons why we start with a snack is usually after school, kids are all hungry, but everybody eats. All the adults eat, mom and dads eat, co-designers eat, whether they're adults or children. So it's a way for us to break bread and sort of hear about each other's day and build that relationship that allows that trust that we've been talking about, so that they feel safe in giving their ideas, they feel listened to, they feel respected, because they're young, but they're human beings.
I would say for us, taking some of the methodologies in improvisation has helped a lot. So the idea of like truly being open and saying yes, and then build on each other's ideas. We even, for our own staff, we quite often do practice these improvisations in our team meetings to what does it mean to be present, to really listen, to don't come with any pre-assumptions or any like ideas that you want to validate, but actually trying to create something at the moment together with the participants that are in the room. And just like borrowing methodologies from improvisation has helped us a lot.
Kids love to play.
They love to play. We all love to play. Thank you both so much for sharing your insights and experiences. We're going to transition to a lightning round. So I know our audience is interested in hearing from specific product partners that we've worked with and what that has looked like on their end. So we're going to do three partners are going to share. Matt Miller, the co-founder and CEO of Oko Labs, followed by Lady San Pedro, who's the Director of Business Innovation at Mrs. Wordsmith, and then Tiff Gagnon from Scratch Foundation, who's a design director there. So I'll kick it off to Matt, and then he'll pass it to our fellow presenters.
Great, thanks so much, Maida. What an exciting event today. Super thrilled to help launch the Sandbox. A little bit about Oko. So Oko is an AI-powered assistant for small group collaborative learning designed for K-12 classrooms. And our mission is to make learning more engaging, more rigorous, and also more fun using the tools in the AI toolbox that we have now, that ever-expanding toolbox. We've been working with the Cooney Center and Cooney Center partners from our earliest days as a company. I think it's going on 3 years. That must make us officially guinea pig number 0 for the Sandbox. And we began that work together from our earliest days because we knew that when we were going to be bringing artificial intelligence to bear on the challenge of small group work, in groups of kids in the classroom, that there were a lot of challenges we were going to encounter there. And we were sort of disappointed when we looked at some of the early attempts to bring AI into the classroom. It was a lot of taking consumer products designed for adults, things like Alexa, and popping them into classrooms and sort of seeing how it goes. And we wanted to take a fresh perspective, a perspective that was really informed by our end users, putting kids at the center. So my co-founder Lawrence Holt and I, we knew that for any education technology product to make a really sustained and really deep impact on the lives of kids and on their educational outcomes, you need to balance engagement with rigor. Getting kids to have fun and really enjoy what they're doing while you're engaging them in cognitively demanding work that actually achieves learning gains. So naturally for us, in tackling this combination of engagement and rigor, the Cooney Center just popped as a partner for us early on. We wanted to build a solid research basis for our work, involve kids in that process. And my goodness, we learned a whole lot more than just that. So, a couple images I've shared here, one of which on the right you've seen before. When we started this process of working with kids in our earliest design explorations, we had already been prototyping some potential games that were collaborative in nature. And our initial ask was, hey, we kind of want to play test some things. We know we want to get some feedback on something that we're in the process of building. And so we started out, putting that in front of kids, seeing how it went. And of course, we learned things. We found bugs. We tried some stuff that didn't work. We learned where we needed to tweak. But over time, we evolved our work with the Cooney Center as we began to engage with KidsTeam and as we began to engage with the Giant Room to really move towards those outer circles of kids as design partners. We really, we stopped bringing our prototypes into the sessions. We had much more expansive and open-ended activities and explorations that we did with the kids. And that was really fun. That's what's happening on the right side. It was really fun, but you'll also see the look on my face, which I initially objected to sharing widely, is actually one of productive struggle. It's often hard. You often need to really sort of sit with these learnings and really give it up to the kids and what they find exciting and interesting and engaging. So I guess I'll close with this. I would say that for any early stage startup, it can be a challenge, sometimes a financial challenge, sometimes a time challenge, sometimes a focus challenge, to get outside of your little product development bubble and your technical work of bringing a product to life. But if kids are anywhere in your stakeholder map, if they are a user of your product, it's almost malpractice to bring that product out to the world without in the process of designing that solution. So I'm thrilled that we've done that. I'm thrilled that we were able to partner with the Cooney Center from the early days in bringing OCO to life and bringing the sandbox to life. With that, I think I will hand it over to Lady. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt. Next slide, please. Hi, everyone. Today, I'm going to speak to you about why we are investing in kids' digital literacy. But first, let's look at some of the realities that kids and their families are facing today. So we found that half of kids aged 11 and 12 have a social media profile, despite most platforms' minimum age being 13. And this is so because traditional child-friendly platforms tend to remove content that kids actually want to explore. And as a result, they end up in places where they can truly be exposed to damaging material, such as those on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, or Twitch. And next slide, please. So in response to an ineffective system, we are developing Planet Agora. At its core, it is digital literacy gamified for social emotional development. We are designing this app for kids aged 8 to 13 as a social networking chat app where they can share and interact with content that feeds their curiosity and also prompts critical thinking. The difference here is in gamified moderation. On this app, kids are rewarded for developing social emotional skills by reviewing the content they encounter. So they have the option through anonymous flagging or celebration of messages to form a better understanding of Planet Agora values. These include body positivity, gender equality, diversity, kindness, truth, authenticity, and creativity. These pillars are in place to combat common online offenses, including body shaming, sexism, hate speech, fake news, and so on. Next slide, please. So to move forward with such a project, we need to validate our concept, which is why we tapped the Joan Ganz Cooney Center to test our hypotheses with kids and their parents. In the early stages, we first held multiple discussions, consultations, and collaborations with game designers, technologists, policymakers, educators, and child psychology specialists to create an app that is fun, safe, and enriching for kids. Following this, we held a series of playtests and co-design sessions with the Joan Ganz Cooney Center, and these sessions provided us the opportunity to really place our early prototype directly in the hands of children. This enables us to gather valuable insight firsthand. So all this work means that the app we're developing is closely tailored to kids and their needs. Next slide, please. The other type of investment we are making has to do with our commitment to keeping kids safe with tech. Some of the technologies we are exploring and testing include content moderation technologies to spot and remove anything not suitable for kids' learning or enjoyment. We're also looking at some very cool age verification technology to make sure that only eligible children aged 8 to 13 get into the app with no adults allowed. And finally, we are looking at speech solutions to recognize slang phrases and regional accents because, as we know, kids and teens come up with new expressions and new terms by the day. Next slide, please. So our investments have so far provided us the validation essential to app development. The playtest and co-design sessions with Joan Ganz Cooney Center confirmed kids find moderating content on Planet Agora easy and fun. They found the rewards awesome, and they felt committed to upholding Planet Agora values. We're also happy to have gotten a positive response from parents, with one parent saying, whether we like it or not, technology is part of our kids' generations. All kinds of information is out there for them to absorb, and I would like kids to learn how to discern the good from the bad information. And so while we've made significant progress, Planet Agora continues to evolve. We're committed to creating an empowering space where kids thrive and shape a more positive future online. So we'd like to invite friends and collaborators to reach out, as we'd love to hear your ideas and join in our mission. Thank you. Let me hand you over to Tiff.
Hello, everybody. I think we can go to the next slide, if you will. Thank you so much. So for those not familiar with Scratch, it's a free creative coding platform for kids ages 8 to 13. But today I'm going to be talking about ScratchJr, which is a creative coding app for younger users around ages 5 to 7 who are early or pre-readers developing literacy skills. They use this app to animate their own stories or make simple games in a sandbox environment. It's usually introduced and used alongside an adult or caregiver, as you can see in those images above. Educators are typically familiar with the computer science curriculum, and resources are available on our website for caregivers. Ideally, adults can provide scaffolding for kids while they're using the app together. So we wondered, what if that wasn't the case? What if teachers are brand new to computer science, or if a parent can't find our resources? So our big question was, what if the child has no guidance? How successful will they be? Some secondary things we were wondering were if kids would innately try to help each other in a group setting, and then were there more specific improvements we could make to our onboarding experience? So this is when we partnered with the Cooney Center and the Giant Room to conduct 3 playtesting sessions with 15 kids ages 4 to 6 at PS 161 in the Harlem neighborhood of New York City. Next slide, please. So you've heard a little bit about the play sessions from those who came before me and how fun and eye-opening they were. I'm going to focus on what happened right after. The Giant Room delivered us a detailed and comprehensive report. It was over 50 pages. There were dozens of observations and recommendations based on the research questions we asked. So what we needed to do was further synthesize those findings and make this a tangible list of features that we'd want to develop. We did this through a process of 4 steps and with a team of designers and product managers, all of whom attended at least 2 of those sessions in New York. Next slide, please. Thank you. For step 1, we listed the observations and suggestions found in the report, and we grouped them by similar theme. So we came out with scaffolding, usability, engagement, and what we called cognitive connection, which was understanding the relationship between the interface and the concept of coding. Each team member had the opportunity to share their thoughts about each item, and we collectively agreed on which suggestions we would move forward with as possible features. During step 2, we mapped those features onto a grid based on our own perceived levels of priority and effort to develop them. Everyone had their own opinion, so we did this exercise independently and then came together to debate. Sometimes we agreed on placement, and that led to a nice little grouping like the pink cluster you see on the image on the right. And other times things were placed on opposite sides of the axes, which led to crucial discussion and hashing out amongst the team, which was step 3. And next slide. Through talking to differing opinions up front, we probably prevented issues and misunderstandings down the line. It was a level setting of sorts that got everyone on the same page before starting any of the development work. After the discussion, our spaghetti wall of individual perceptions seen on the left became a clean and clear map of what was agreed upon as priorities and levels of effort on the right. We also started to notice dependencies or connections between items, which led to just one more layer of grouping, which is step 4 and on the next slide. Thank you. During the last step, we determined which features were MVP, which needed further design exploration, and/or which required specific user testing during that exploration. We created areas of focus based on the connections made in that previous step, which included low-hanging fruit or no-brainers, the main area of focus, which for us was around scaffolded engagement, and offshoots that were related to or potentially addressed through other areas. So for example, could the suggestion of making the progression of blocks more understandable be addressed through the idea of nudges and prompts? Instead of exploring both those ideas independently, we'd start with the nudges and prompts and think through how that could be a tool used for kids to learn about block progression. In this step, we were able to visualize the connections and prioritize our explorations that may inherently answer other open questions. So basically, it helped us to hone our immediate next steps. Marrying these areas of focus with the prioritization needs, we formed a rough feature list that can be worked through with our engineering and product teams and can eventually become a product roadmap. Broadly, we determined what we'd explore before and after our initial MVP release during this process. Slide 5, please. So overall, the success of this process can be attributed to encouraging every team member to participate in every step along the way. In the end, we collectively discussed and agreed on a plan that we all felt confident in. We had a great set of research to start with, thanks to the partners at Cooney Center and the Giant Room, and we were able to take that work and turn it into something tangible, for a tangible plan for ScratchJr. And now I will turn it back to Mita.
Thank you, everyone. That was incredible to see a fantastic array of partners, and congrats to Matt as well, who recently was granted an SBIR award for his product. And we're so excited to see exactly how these recommendations are being implemented. And some of them may not be things that are implemented right away, but they help inform a longer term product roadmap, which is, fantastic to use this resource, in the coming years as well, to be able to go back to all of the wonderful findings that came out of the sessions. So we're going to transition to Q&A. So I think we can take down the slides for now. And I think we're bringing back the panelists. Great. And we have some that folks have been putting in the chat throughout. So I'll start with one of them. I'd love to hear your advice for duration and frequency of co-design sessions. Do they work best if the same kids return to the space for multiple sessions? I think are all our panelists here. So maybe we'll get a couple of perspectives on this one, because I think it's a really important question. Beth, if you want to jump in from the way that you all have approached the work, and then we can chat with Ozzy as well.
Yeah, I mean, so you heard from Ozzy about the building the relationship, right, and reducing the power dynamic and building the trust. We found that it's best to sort of, because it takes a while for a child, it takes a while for an adult to become familiar with participatory design and design techniques and how to collaborate and elaborate and follow the design process. So it also takes time for children, and especially for children who are used to that disparity in power dynamic. So we work with kids once a week during the school year. We usually have a summer camp, a more intensive summer camp in the summer, so that kids can get to know each other, and they also can experiment with techniques and in some sessions with design prompts that are maybe more familiar to them, like the amusement park, designing the amusement park of the future, and so they're comfortable with the ideas, or they come up with the ideas, but building that relationship so they feel comfortable with that dialogue, that sort of improv, yes, and then we do this and then we do that, elaboration that's key to co-design with kids is important. So we try to work with the same children over a year.
Yeah, and I love how
about weekly. Yeah.
When you guys have the kids work on a design notebook, so they can also track how they have learned those skills over the course of the year, which is really fun. Ozzy, we've done some different ways of partnering, and in some part to bring more kids who might not typically be able to participate in these sorts of experiences into the process. If you want to share a little bit about your side of it.
Sure, of course. I think absolutely one consideration is making sure that we have enough time with kids as they are being part of this co-design process. And then obviously the other consideration is our needs, like our partner needs, their product development basically process, how quickly they want to go to the next round of their development. And a lot of times, especially in the startup world, things need to happen yesterday. So there is this thing like a luxury of time, and also making sure that we provide answers, or we contribute to the design process in a timely manner before the time has gone, because then no ideas will be integrated. For us, I guess luxury opportunity we have at the Giant Room is that we have kids coming to our space and being part of our programs, whether Giant Room or in their schools. So they are familiar with this idea of co-designing throughout all the engagements they have with our programs. So all of the sessions, whether it's at their school, after school, whatever it is, it's always about their ideas, helping them to basically build prototypes of their ideas and practice in this practice of sharing their ideas out loud. So they are kind of familiar already with that process, and it's not like very foreign for them when we bring another adult designer into the room. Having said that, we did the series we did with ScratchJr. They were actually kids who weren't part of Giant Room at all. Like this was the first time they would see us, and I was, to be honest, a little bit nervous to see if we would actually get a good feedback. We'll be able to actually hear their ideas within that like 3 sessions that we had with them. And it was, to our contrary to my expectation, it was actually very, very fruitful. And after, I think, like 10 minutes, kids really felt comfortable, and they started engaging and being just like part of the process. And I think, again, the key was when they saw an adult sitting with them on the floor, and if they wanted to jump on my back to show that how they wanted to quote this a human robot, they were allowed to do it. And when they were laughing at something funny that they actually meant it to be funny, we laughed with them. So they instantly felt that, okay, this is a space for them that they can literally do what they want and share in a way that they want to do. And then obviously we try to like manage it when it goes out of hand. But those like signals that like, and kids are very quick in picking up those signals that yes, it's okay to be yourself, and just like creating those spaces for them. And a lot of times it comes with just like working with many kids, and you know how to interact with them, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. We have one other question about recruitment that I can also answer real quick. I'm curious about the recruitment of kids for co-design. What is the process? Are there specific profiles you look for? So one of the projects I mentioned that we're not sharing more about today was one that we conducted in August with the Advanced Education Research and Development Fund, where they were looking, to understand better how older kids who are reluctant readers feel about reading, their motivations, their interests, what would support their confidence and stress. So we actually did a custom recruitment for them, where we were recruiting kids from that demographic who were identified as resistant to reading, because those were the kids we wanted in the room to help design a new product. So I think it's thinking about who is the target audience for the product and how to best include those voices specifically is also something to think about when you're planning your co-design. Another question that we're getting is, when trying to collaborate with kids on a product that needs strong pedagogical rigor, how can you collaborate with them in a way that maintains that rigor, and do you bring them into the conversation about the instructional requirements? I know that Scratch and Planet Agora both have like a curriculum that you all work on. And so I'm wondering how you're thinking about what your, what the kids are providing input and feedback and ideas for versus, the curriculum that you had in mind for the product itself. So maybe I'll start with Chris.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a strong pedagogical approach, but it's still a framework for the kids to actually express their own ideas, express their identity. And so, I love the idea of the sort of like the whimsical ideas are the ones that actually provide great inspiration. So it doesn't necessarily, well, I was going to say one of the things we discovered with Ozzy was that ScratchJr really needs a poop block. But sort of like, what's that really going to look like? I'm not sure. But on the other hand, you can turn that around and say, well, right, it's about self-expression. Now we can, and that's still something that's part of our pedagogy. So like, how do we expand that tent? How do we make sure that it's things that they find fun and engaging and inspiring, as well as, meet our pedagogical needs?
Lady or Pierre, whoever wants to jump in.
Do you want to take it, Pierre, or?
No, you go ahead.
Yeah. So I would say it's very similar to what Chris said. We came in there with with a pedagogical design. We came in there with a definition of the different Planet Agora pillars. But part of the playtest and the co-design is really seeing, is this the correct format for children? Will they really respond to text laid out in this way? Did they prefer videos? Did they prefer illustrations? So yes, you do come in with a starting point, but then you come out of there with something much richer, and sky's the limit, really.
Could I add something onto that, Meta, just real quick?
Yeah.
Because often we will, I mean, it's not just entertainment products that KidsTeam works with, but I mean, we always say that the contributions that co-design with kids brings to you is, especially when you have pedagogical content, that you have this conundrum with co-design of like, can the children actually participate as equitably as possible or equally as possible in elaboration if they don't know the content, right? If they're a 7-year-old and they don't know fractions or something like that. But one of the contributions is you actually learn a lot, like Lady said, about how kids learn, right? By asking them and inviting them into the process and seeing that, well, maybe a poop block is something that will engage them enough and be interest driven enough to have them figure out where to put it in the algorithmic process. And so, and that empowers them in a way and says yes to their identity. So I think it's something that we just remain open to.
Yeah. May I add something on that?
Of course, yes, please.
Yeah, I think for us, and there was a question from a gentleman on like play testing and co-designing, is that not two different things? I think what you learn with playing with the kids, and as he said, the fact that we're all on the floor, we're told not to wear ties or suit, not to have any instrument of power, not to laugh unless it was very clearly funny and this sort of thing. That's when you realize what really matters to kids. For instance, we had a moment where we all looked at each other, all the adults in the room, and said, oh my God, I can't believe we're hearing that. And there was a moment where in our app, we need to manage the emotions of the kids that need to be able to speak to a counselor. And so there was one little girl who said, I want to speak to someone who looks like me. And then there was another kid immediately behind her. This whole thing sprouted kind of not triggered by adults, but the kids among themselves. They say, no, I want to speak to AI. And then the other kids say, yeah, I want to speak to AI too. And then we all look at them and say, hey, do you trust AI? They say, yeah, we trust AI more than humans. Yeah, we trust AI more than humans. We want an AI sort of counselor. And we just looked at each other and said, oh my God, we would never have guessed that. And so that kind of totally changed the way that we're thinking about how to design a counseling relationship. It was fascinating and could nearly didn't happen. I can't remember why it was that some kid really, because actually that's interesting because it was a black little girl, I think, who said she wanted to have somebody looking like her to talk to. If we had no diversity in the room, that would never have happened. So it was really super interesting.
Yeah, thank you. And somebody did ask about playtesting versus co-design. So I just wanted to clarify. Yeah, we're not saying they're the same process at all, but part of the sort of spectrum of bringing kids into the design process. And I think what we've also done is even when we have kids who are playtesting, we're also bringing a prototyping component, especially for the younger kids, where they're also having a creative time for being creative and coming up with design ideas and things like that. So there's always a part of the session where we're really sitting and listening and creating with the kids as well, even if it's not a more traditional co-design full session. And then somebody also asked about remote organizations and the sessions that I was just talking about where we worked with kids who are reluctant readers. Those were done entirely online. We had kids from 11 different locations across the country, and they did not know each other and they did not know us, and they were incredible. Just, the kids participated so well. They were engaged. They had fun. We had fun with them. So really, I think the KidsTeam folks, forced because of the pandemic, really has innovated a lot of this online co-design, and we can all benefit from learning from the techniques that they've developed as well. So I'm going to transition back to Michael to help us wrap up. Thank you everyone so much for all of your wonderful thoughts and sharing.
Okay, thank you so much. And we have 5 minutes to go. Look at us on time and everything. There are a number of questions remaining in the chat, so we'll try to tackle them by typing if we can't get to them here verbally. So what a great conversation. I enjoyed sitting back and watching and thinking once again. And I want to share my gratitude with all of the speakers today for sharing their experience and insights. Ozzy and Beth, folks from OCO, Mrs. Wordsmith and Scratch, And of course, to all of you attendees for joining us and asking such good questions. Please keep asking those questions and we'll do our best to follow up. We're so happy to see old and new friends today. If you're interested in working with us or engaging with our design community, please add your information to the form. I think it's been posted a couple of times in the chat, so please just put your information there and we'll follow up. One last thing, I did mention earlier in the call that we're now accepting applications for our new Wellbeing by Design fellowships. We invite mid-career design professionals who work in kids' interactive tech and media to apply. This is a free program supported by Pinterest with no cost to participate. We plan to select 8 fellows who will workshop their current projects for kids between the ages of 2 and 18, network with other kids, technology and media designers, and learn from industry leaders between January and April of next year. Meetings will be virtual, so you can be from anywhere in the US currently. We will engage in collaborative sessions with you about child-centered technology and media design concepts that foster well-being among young users, a topic that's very present for us these days. Fellows will have the opportunity to interact with the youth design team for feedback, and we'll cap it off with an in-person event here at Sesame Workshop in New York City in next April. The deadline for applications is October 18th, so you have plenty of time. Please find a link to the application in the chat. Hopefully somebody has posted that, and please spread the word to friends and colleagues who you think might be interested. All right, I think that is it for our agenda today. Thank you so much again, panelists, attendees. Thank you for sticking with us all the way to the end. What a great group. I wish we were all together in a room so we could keep talking. So that gives us inspiration to keep going and doing more of these in the future. So hopefully you will sign up for future events with us and our partners. Thanks all. Be well. See you next time.